Good morning. Well, the Acts of the Apostles continues with Paul and Silas, not Barnabas now, Paul and Silas, setting out on this great second missionary journey. And they travel back to where they finished the last one in Lystra. And there they meet up with a family, a Jewish mother who had obviously been converted to Christianity, and she had a son called Timothy. But she was married to a Greek, and as a result, her son Timothy had not been circumcised at birth. But Timothy wants to join Paul's party. And here we see a strange thing, because Paul is quite content to circumcise this young man in order that he can join their party and not cause offense amongst the Jews that they were visiting. But then Paul and Silas, and now Timothy as well, travel down to Troas. And there in Troas, they meet up with Luke, this physician who was going to stay with Paul right throughout his ministry. And we believe that this is where they met, because from this moment on, the text changes. And Luke writing it says, we did this, and we did something else. Instead of just talking about Paul and Silas and Timothy in the third person. So there in Troas, Luke joins them. And while in Troas, Paul gets this vision in a dream, a Macedonian calling to him and saying, come over and help us. And knowing this is a call from God, they set sail from Troas and sail across the Adriatic until they come to Greece, and there they come to the city of Philippi. And in Philippi, they meet this woman called Lydia, who is converted by their ministry, and invites them to come into his home. And again, Luke says, we come into her home and stay there while we're ministering. But while ministering here, they come across a strange situation, because in Philippi at this time, there was a young woman who was telling fortunes. But she wasn't just doing it casually. She was doing it with demonic power, with satanic power. And she was telling people what was happening in their lives. And she follows Paul and Silas and Luke, probably now, and Timothy around the place, shouting, these are the servants of the Most High God. These are the servants of the Most High God. You would think, wouldn't you, that this would be good advertising. But in fact, Paul recognizes this is just the enemy trying to disturb people and cause problems with people as they try to understand what the gospel is all about. And finally, he turns on this demonic and says, get out of her. And it leaves her immediately. But the people who are using her to raise money in this way now realize that she's lost the gift. And as a result, they became so angry with Paul that they arranged for him to be arrested and thrown into prison. One thing I want to point out to you at this point is this. When you deal with people who are telling fortunes, when you deal with people who are carrying out this type of ministry in the world, be very careful. A lot of people, you see, think, oh, it's nothing, there's nothing to it at all. Be very careful. Because on many occasions, these people may not be operating just with cleverness of insight. They truly may be operating through demonic forces and satanic power. And if we do come into contact with them, and if we do submit to them, and if we do ask for ministry from them, then we too can become contaminated by these forces. We as Christians have got to be careful, and we've got to keep the armor up, the armor that protects us from the enemy's attack. See, we're quite safe until we start playing with it. And I've known in Christians play with things like Ouija boards and suddenly realize something has happened. On a lot of occasions, it just seems to be nonsense, but then something will happen, and they realize that they've been infected in some way. And then they have to ask for people to come in and minister to them in order that they should be set free. It couldn't have helped touch them if they hadn't played with it in the first place. But Paul turns on this woman, throws out the demon, but as a result, he's arrested and put into prison. But while in prison that night, there's an earthquake. The doors of the prison are thrown open. The shackles fall off them. See, God is moving with power. And the jailer coming out and realizing that the prison doors have been thrown open, takes a knife to kill himself, because if he's lost his prisoners, he would suffer death penalty. But Paul calls out to him and says, don't harm yourself. And then explains to him as well why they're in prison and what the power of God is all about. And he and his whole family, they are converted and they are baptized. This is a mention to show you that when people are converted in this way, I don't know how old his children were, but the whole family were baptized at this time and admitted into the Christian church. God bless you at this time. Amen.